Good morning. I'm Craig Carter. I'm glad you've chosen to worship with us here at Lynn Haven Methodist, either on campus or by joining us online. And today we're going to wrap up a 6-week series called More. In it, we have observed that we live in a culture that tries to give us more and more of everything in an ever faster and faster way. As a result of that, we feel overwhelmed and overloaded by the pace of life and by all the onslaught of information that constantly comes our direction. As a result of that, our souls are not well. Our soul being our inner self, the essence of who we are. Our soul is our mind, our will, our intentions, our emotions, and our feelings. And we've observed that only Jesus, the great physician, can cure a soul-sick condition. And so we've gone to him, realizing that instead of getting more of what the world has to offer, we need more of God, more of his life, more of his spirit. And we found some relief. We have gained some restoration for our souls by relying on some practices that are outlined in a book by John Eldredge called Get Your Life Back. We've discovered that we can make room for God. We can avail ourselves to him and to his abundant and eternal life by taking some mini retreats throughout the day, like that 1-minute pause, ways in which we can reconnect with God. We've also, so that we get our cues from God and not from the world. We're going to go outside. We're going to enjoy God's creation. We're going to care for our own souls, and we're going to seek to live in union with Christ. And based on my own experience and what I've heard from many of you, this has been a really helpful series and even a life-changing one in some ways. And so the question is, how do we keep it going? How do we keep from ending this series and just going back to our old familiar ways that got us in the mess we were in the first place? Here's the way John Eldredge phrases that question in the last chapter of his book. He says, "What will you do on a daily and weekly basis to find God and receive more of him?" So I ask you that question. What are you going to do? What will you do on a daily or weekly basis to find more of God and to experience and receive more of him? Well, he gives us the answer. It's to live simply. Just to do the simple daily things that create space for God and allow us to live in fellowship with him. To live simply. Oh, that got me thinking. What does that look like? I mean, that sounds good, but what does it mean to live simply? I tend to be a left brain kind of person. Okay? And because of that, I get a look from my wife, not kind of, all right? I'm a severely left brain kind of person. So my tendency was to create a list, a step-by-step process or system to follow for simple daily living. But I resisted that temptation this past week and decided that I would tap into my seldom used right brain and do something more artistic and creative. And so I decided to write a poem about what it means to live simply. Just a way that maybe I could pursue a simple lifestyle. I see some of you grinning. I'm going to share it with you, but please be gentle. Okay? You're already laughing, so get it out of your system. You're going to embarrass me. Don't laugh as I read my attempt at a poem. Okay? I'll take my time and not live too fast. Troubles will come and they will pass. I found a woman and I found love, and I'll never forget there is someone up above. I'll forget my lust for a rich man's gold because all I need is in my soul. I know I can do this if I try, for all I really want is to be satisfied. I'm going to be a simple kind of man. I'll be something I can love and understand. Yes, I'll be a simple kind of man. I know I can do this. Hey, that's pretty good, huh? Yeah. I got a feeling if I put those lyrics to music, it would be a hit song. As a matter of fact, that's already happened. My apologies to Ronnie Van Zant and Leonard Skinner. A song that they made a hit, unbelievably, 51 years ago. They released a song called Simple Man in 1973. But that's the key to experiencing more of God. Just to be a simple man, a simple woman, a simple boy, a simple girl. And that goes against the culture in which we live. It's hard to live simply because modern technology has complicated our lives in so many different ways. So how do we go about doing it? Well, in your outline in your worship guide, I'm listing 4 simple practices that we can use to experience more of God. And I hope you'll fill in the blanks as we go along. You'll find it in your worship guide here in the worship center. If you're joining us online, you'll find it on the sermon notes page of the website. And I'll just tell you up front, I have regressed to my left brain ways, and so all the fill in the blanks start with the letter C. So if you're playing at home or you want to try and guess ahead, I'll give you that hint. Okay? We live simply, we experience more of God, first of all, when we use the proper compass to guide our lives. We have to use the proper compass. We live in a world that is constantly telling us what to value, where to go, what to do, what to be. And so it's very easy for us to get off course, to head in the wrong direction. And so, like the ancient sailors, we need a compass to keep us headed the right way. Now, for us as believers, that compass is God's Word. Listen to what the psalmist says about the Word of the Lord. It says, "Make me walk along the path of your commands, for that is where happiness is found." Other translations say joy or delight. "Each of your commandments is right. That is why I hate every false way." He says the key to walking the pathway to happiness, to joy, to delight, which is the fullness of God, more of Him, more of His Spirit, is following the commands of God. That means it's not an option for us to read this book, to digest what's in it, to meditate upon it, to apply it to our lives. It becomes a compass that keeps us moving in the right direction. Now, that being said, even when we follow what's written in this book, even when we're living obedient, faithful lives, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to have some inner turmoil. We live in a very tough world. It beats our souls up. So even if we're being faithful and obedient, it isn't necessarily always well with our souls. So not only do we need to guide our lives by this compass, but there are also some internal compasses and external compasses. Just signs and symbols that suggest whether or not our soul is well. John Eldredge calls them in his book barometers. They kind of measure the air pressure of our lives. And there's negative barometers, there's positive barometers. These are signs, signals that let us know how things are with our soul. Now, I've identified several of these barometers in my own life, and I'm going to share them with you right now simply to prompt you to think about, if I ask you the question that we started this series with, how is it with your soul? How will you answer that question? But what are you going to base that on? How do you know whether your soul is well or maybe struggling? Okay? Well, here's first of all, some negative barometers that things are not well with my soul. When I flinch at any request for help, whether it's a text, an email, a phone call, when I flinch thinking that might disrupt my plans and complicate my life, well, my soul's not very well. That I'm not even willing to help, or don't want to at least. Am I available for relationships? Or is it social interaction an interruption to my schedule? When I get that phone call, hey, do you have time to go to lunch? Or somebody just drops in, maybe passing through town, wants to visit. Is that an interruption, or do I see that as a blessing that I get to live life in a relationship? Do I crave something sweet or salty, or both? Right after I've eaten or right before bedtime? You ever do that? I'm just, putting things up from dinner, open the pantry, I've just eaten a full meal, and I grab a snack to eat. Okay? Or right before I go to bed. I know I don't need nourishment to get me through the night, but I still eat something sweet, and then usually something salty, and then something sweet again. Why is that? Why? Because that's my drug of choice, snacks. Okay? It's a way that I soothe my soul, kind of take the edge off, if you will. And so when I find myself craving those things, I say, am I really hungry, or maybe there's something unsettled in my soul? An inability to enjoy simple pleasures or take in beautiful sights. Just the other morning, as we usually do, Lee and I were walking the dogs early in the morning. The sun was just starting to come over the horizon, and it was spectacular. And Lee said, man, look at that sunrise. And she stopped, look at it. I just kept right on going. I said, yeah, I saw it. It reminded me of that scene from the movie Vacation. You remember that with Chevy Chase years ago? He and his family traveling across country in a station wagon, and he just wants to get to the next place. And his wife says, but Clark, it's the Grand Canyon. And he puts his arm around her and says, okay, let's go. That's kind of the way I live my life. Beautiful sights, all sorts of wonderful things. Just, okay, got it, let's go. That's a sign that all is not well with my soul. And then if I feel I don't have time to take even a 1-minute pause, then I'm just dead and gone at that point. Okay? Well, what are some positive barometers? One of them would be this, that I listened to what Lee said to me when I got home, and I actually remember what she said. Because oftentimes I get home, and she'll say, well, what do you think of that? And I'll say, think of what? What I just said. What did you just say? I didn't even know you were... Okay, that's a negative barometer. Let me stick to the positives. But occasionally I do remember that she spoke to me and what she said. That means maybe things are going okay. Another positive sign is when I'm taking time to exercise or to walk, run, or ride my bike, or even play golf. It's positive when I'm regularly doing the 1-minute pause. Not just to check something off my to-do list, not to keep my 43-day streak going, which is what it is right now, but in order to really just reconnect with God. And if I look forward to that and want to do it, that shows things are well with my soul. When I decide to take my dog Maddie outside for some extra playtime, life's good. We try and get her outside 3 times. If I get her out 4 times or a 5th time, man, my soul's pretty settled. Or when I give my sister or a friend in another state a call just because, not to talk about just because I want to reconnect with them, that means life is good. It's a good sign. How about you? So I read through that. What are the signs that maybe you've been sucked back into the craziness of this world? Can you identify those? Steer clear of them and take notice. Or what shows you that you're on the right track? That you are connecting with God, that your soul is well. We live our lives guided by those compasses that keep us going in the right direction, but always under the compass with a capital C of God's Word. We live simply, we experience more of God when we follow the proper compass, and secondly, when we learn to be content with what we have. This world says, you need more, you need more, you need more. Every moment needs to be more amazing than the last one. And what happens? Well, we chase after more. It wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Kind of like the proverbial dog chasing a car. What are you going to do when you catch it? I mean, what are you going to do? We find out that it's not near as satisfying, not near as fulfilling as we thought that it was going to be. So somehow we have to learn to be content with what we have. Okay? That we can't just constantly chase after anything and everything. Now, in the world in which we live, there's no doubt that there is this temptation and there's more offers of more than the world has ever seen before, right? But this quest for more isn't new in the 21st century. It's been around since the beginning of time. People have always sought more and more out of this world. That's why Paul wrote to his young protege Timothy these words: "Godliness with contentment is great gain." If we have food and clothing, let's be content with that. Apparently, Timothy was being tempted to chase after some other things, maybe good, bad, or indifferent. He said, just be content with what we have. And that's how he lived his life. And so the Apostle Paul says in his letter to the Philippians, I have learned to be content with whatever I have. I have learned to be content. Apparently, contentment is not something that comes naturally. It's an acquired skill. It's something we learn to do. And so how do we learn to be content? Well, let me share with you one way that we can practice and learn contentment. The enemy of contentment, first of all, is comparison. Did you know that? The enemy of contentment is always comparison. Comparing what we have, what I have, with what other people have. Comparing what I can do with what other people can do. It starts at the earliest of ages. You give a snack to a child, and what does she immediately do? Hers is bigger. His is bigger than mine. They got 6 M&Ms. Ani got 5. Comparing. They get the test paper back in school. What do? Oh, there's what I got. What'd you get? How'd you do? It doesn't stop there, does it? It becomes where we're going to go to college, what career we're going to pursue, what our income is going to be, what's the house we're going to live in, what car are we going to drive, what's our spouse look like, how do our kids behave. We're constantly comparing, and we always can see that things could be better. You know, as a kid, we rarely, if ever, traveled. Okay, and I've had a blessing as an adult to travel to all sorts of places and to stay in some places, some hotels that I could have never imagined I'd ever get to stay in. I get there and get in the room and say, man, this is incredible. Open up the window and say, man, but you know, those rooms over there have a little better view, you know, of the beach. Anybody else ever been there? Done that? Here's what I found is that it's human nature to compare. But what if rather than comparing our lives and our lot in life with those who have it a little better, what if we compared ourselves with those who have less? It's an important lesson that was reinforced last week as Pastor Isaac, our partner from Uganda, came. Remember what he shared right here in worship? He said, you don't know how blessed you are. People in his country sometimes walk 10 miles for a pail of dirty water. You have water whenever you want it. You have food whenever you want it. You have clothing. You have transportation. You have electricity. If we have those things, I think Paul would say, then we'll be content with that. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Why? Because it opens our lives up to God. It allows us to enjoy life, to be satisfied with what God has given us, and to appreciate those little things in life. You know, I just found that this past week. Just going in the bathroom and turning on the faucet and water coming out. It was just a reminder, man, I appreciate that. I'm thankful for it. It's nothing short of a miracle that we can just flip on a switch and a light comes on. Or we feel a little bit warm and we can turn the thermostat down a degree or 2. How incredible that is. And when we begin to appreciate those things, well then, it opens our hearts up for more of God. You know, here's a great principle to live by. Good enough is good enough. Okay, I've used that one-liner before. Let me add something to that. You know why good enough is good enough? Because God is good and He's enough. That second part's original with me as far as I know, so I like that. You might want to write that one down. Yeah, there you go. A poet and a laureate. Who knew? Good enough is good enough because God is good and He's enough. You and I don't need everything. Our lives don't have to be awesome every single moment. Okay? We don't have to look amazing and be amazing all the time. Good enough is good enough because God is enough, and we will be content with that. And so I just encourage you, just resist the temptation to upgrade your phone to the latest and greatest technology. Resist the temptation to update your wardrobe to the latest fashion. Okay? Just be content with what you have. And besides, if you will do those things, well, folks will probably consider you kind of retro, and they'll think you're really cool because you don't buy into, you're wearing old stuff, okay, till it comes around again. We learn to be content with what we have. We also live simply and experience more of God when we make daily choices that keep our soul well. Daily choices. Live one day at a time. Hear that said all the time, right? I don't know how profound that is. How else are you going to live? Have you found a way to live 2 days at a time? 3 days? No, we can only live one day at a time. We can't even live one day at a time. We can only live one moment at a time. That's how God wired us. He created us to operate that way. So we take a breath, but then we got to take another breath. And then we have to take another breath. You slept last night. Some of you didn't get enough sleep, apparently. But you get catching up. That's good. But you slept last night. You're going to sleep again this evening, right? We eat food. We drink water on a constant, ongoing basis. That's why Jesus taught us to pray to recognize that fact. Give us what? Today, our daily bread. Now, when we apply that principle to the subject at hand, it means that, yes, we want to experience more of God today. But is that going to be enough? No. Tomorrow, we're going to need more of God again. And the day after that, we need more of God. We don't get to accumulate God and His presence in our lives any more than the Israelites could go and gather up a bunch of manna, okay, and save it for some other time. Remember? That heavenly food came to them every day. They had to just take what was offered to them that day. So we make daily choices, and those daily choices we make are either going to help or harm our soul. Now, during this series, we've learned some daily practices that help us to bring rest and restoration to our inner lives. It's the 1-minute pause, getting out in creation, unplugging from technology, getting proper rest. Now, how do we keep that going? How do we keep from going back to our former ways? Well, I think Paul gives us the answer when he writes these words to the Philippians. Keep putting into practice all you have learned and received. Just keep putting into practice again and again and again all you've learned and received, and then the God of peace will be with you. Do the simple things today, and then tomorrow do them again. And then on Tuesday, do them once again. Just keep putting into practice all you have learned and received. Step by step, you'll get to where you want to be. The God of peace will be with you. In other words, you're going to experience more of Him, more of His Spirit, and more of His life. And so we need to consider, what are those daily choices going to be? Some of the things we need to do, some of the things we need maybe to avoid doing. And as you decide what you're going to include and exclude from your daily practices, I would encourage you to consider some insights that John Eldredge shared in his book, Get Your Life Back. In it, he cites a study that appeared in the Harvard Business Review a number of years ago. And this study was entitled The Daily Routines of Geniuses. Researchers looked at the lives of 161 exceptional thinkers and doers. They were artists, they were composers, they were authors, philosophers, scientists, engineers, folks who had an exceptional track record of productivity, of really making a difference with their lives. And they simply looked at their daily schedule. And they found that they shared several common habits that seemed to keep them productive. I just want to list these and just imagine how these could apply to your life and to mine. They had a workplace with minimal distractions. Just think about your office or think about your home. Would you call it a sanctuary? Is it kind of a refuge? A place that you can go to escape and get away from all the pressures of the world? Is it filled with beautiful objects? Does it have minimal distractions? Is it free of clutter? They took a regular daily walk to clear their heads and focus their attention. You know, our brain just can't be on all the time. We need to give it a break. And I have found the incredible value of a walk, a run, a bike ride, that I oftentimes become much more creative, gain all sorts of insight when I just kind of put my brain in neutral for a while. Can't tell you how many times I've been struggling to put together a sermon. I've done all the research, but it's just not coming together. I go out on an exercise and it comes right to me. I can't wait to get home to write it down, hoping I don't forget what had come to me. Or in a quiet time, just taking time apart from all the other things, just focus on God. How many insights I gained that way. They had a clear dividing line between important work and busy work. Okay? They knew the difference. So they probably didn't check their email 12 times a day. Okay? That's busy work. Maybe once in the morning, once in the afternoon. They made a distinction. Not going down what I've called before the rabbit hole of the internet. You know, oh, well, let me look this up. Oh, I'll look this up. All of a sudden, an hour of not even busy work, just wasted time is gone. And they lived limited social lives. They had friends. They engaged with family members, but on a limited basis. They did not accept every invitation to every party. Again, applying it to this subject, I think it has to do with our use of technology, right? That we don't have to constantly be connected with everybody everywhere.